Sign in.
Yeah.
I'll tell
I tried it, I used to end up all doors like it. So I'm a little bit, but I hope you're wrong about this being a cold winter. Wow. Hey, Tuesday.
I thought I was doing bad bringing in 14 loads of road.
We brought 30 in, we got it all, we got the pad side up. One side
You see where I'm 4 foot off, 4 feet.
She can't ride.
Yeah.
Got in 2 feet too, didn't we?
Yeah.
I was out bathing horses yesterday and he was actually felt comfortable enough.
He assures me I'm not gonna have any drainage problems.
Not that sand, first of all.
It was fun watching those trucks try to get out in the sand. Oh my God. This was when they were empty. They'd come in.
Yeah.
Their load.
Yeah.
Maybe you just go pull
Yeah,
out.
I know. Go around and
Yes.
I know that.
Hey, he didn't, his term's not up.
Mhm.
If you look in the backup, it shows who. Okay.
Hey, time to go out and swing. I've been deep.
That keeps it hard.
Live chat, live chat.
She's trying to get.
Jet, yeah, jet.
When you get where to stop it, stop.
Because of the road work.
Nice.
I'm glad mine is not like that. Mine is down on my,
Did they know that?
I told you I did the
the post office.
changes you recommended on this
You know
one.
what?
Very
What
happy.
they're saying is they have a list.
Gonna be a killer slide.
Down to chapel.
You're
Okay.
gonna have to worry about
Triangular
serious
grants.
slack problems.
My address is time minutes.
Especially with the pier.
10 minutes, right. So, yeah, but you know, it's funny, because I did not keep up with that.
It's probably one.
Okay, all right, how do you
No
talk
longer
about it?
exists now that
I know. That means no bills.
Go for top, your most desirable to your,
Doesn't matter which.
the top, yeah, the most desirable to the least desirable, correct?
Yes, it's like it was last year.
Cross summer for P and Z, summer for the Board of General.
You only have 2 more Board of Justice, and they're both coming.
Okay, that's only 2, that's on good.
And then you have your P and Z has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incumbents. 2 of those are alternates, 3 are permanent.
But Mark Pape is not here, but his term isn't up.
No, he's next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's next year. But, so you have 3 and 2 on permanent, and then you have your alternates, which will be 2 and 1. For next year. You have 2 new, 3 new, 1 is already BOA, and 2 is not.
And the little one, we can't one of them fix it, we can't show the back.
But
So is it, it's a shoulder,
Donna,
really,
we did last year.
It's like a bottom.
3 and 4 and 5.
yeah, you can put that out, yeah.
Where'd you get
There's
that?
also another law that happens to them,
That was probably last year.
where they get kicked, and they've got a
Good.
I didn't know.
nerve, like our sciatic nerve, that runs right by that shoulder, and if they hit that nerve just right, I've seen them drag.
So how did that,
2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, they just are dragging away, but if you just see where it looks like there's a physical woman in the shoulder.
Yeah, they were calling someone.
What is that? 606
was
coming.
it 26,000?
Yeah,
Is he able to walk at all?
but this is where.
He does.
26,629.
He will be, yeah. Well, when they hit that nerve, they don't even. And they need to be kind of confined. Probably,
Yeah, he does have.
you got a picture of it?
No, I'm just texting him to see if that's got
Where's the ball?
I mean, if it's something besides dislocation, if the fracture is something not.
Yeah.
Hey, Khaki.
How are y'all?
Good, how are you?
Mr. Johnson? Life is good. Life is good. Isn't it nice? Yes. Well, it is as well. Yesterday, I went out on the phone, and they did this thing in the place for us.
You didn't get one, I didn't get one, so I'm giving you that.
Hello, Mr. Jeffrey.
Hey, Dale, how you doing?
Not sure.
Did you able to let Tina and Jim and the motion tonight, that's how we're cleaning the back. Did you let them know that?
I did not call her. I thought, well, she'd already told us she was coming.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we were there talking, she
Okay.
said, well, I'll be there. So I didn't think any more about it.
Okay, cool, that's one reason.
We were called.
Not just you.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, absolutely. One reason.
I can't do it either. Well, no, this week. I was not thinking it was. Yeah, so the Wednesday. Let me know if anything important happens.
Yeah, sometimes you just, you can bring it, check them out, basically, right, you can bring, check them out, truck with it, around the top.
Most of that's good. Like, instead of needing what?
That three-quarter inch rock. Like I have one, I bring it, like, you'll see them on my.
Yeah, so because they're still
You
doing
bring
it.
it every year.
Most of this is, you know,
That'll not be the end of the road. No, that's, this is the base. My base, first category coming through from my house, where you turn to the sign house and all the things dump. And when I got down there, I had great clay. I hauled truck wood up. That's how I dump. So that's clay. You're gonna have to bring up crushed gravel now, put on top of that.
it'll disappear. Oh, you did not know that.
Yeah, you're not over. You're nowhere close.
That's stunning.
You're nowhere close.
You just ruined my
Jeff, there's tea in there.
I never know if I even have it.
We got a.
How many
Less important.
My mom.
I did notice that it was finer material than the last. Oh, it actually was like a truck. It's like really hard.
But it's not gonna stick.
Right.
You're gonna have to.
Hot thing.
Probably two.
That was 14.
Well, the house, you get, see, 200 square feet, 200 square feet per yard of gravel.
She had,
This is what I've always used. That's
two.
two. Oh, it's a revolving.
Okay, she's married.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah, he was,
It's a private property. Not much right I'm gonna 6 o'clock. Maybe. Time being 6 o'clock, I'd like to open the work session on September 13th, 2021. This is the first year that we revisited boards and commissions having fixed terms. Last time was a 2-year and a 1.5 term because we were kind of mid-season and we did a full cycle. So now we're reappointing. And this is we'll ask the same exact questions tonight. The council you'll get the same questions from me. You will answer them. The council will basically rank how they feel about your answers from the most desirable to the least on their sheet. Those, they will be turned into staff. Staff will tally that, and then in October, I will read off the appointments to boards and commissions, planning and zoning and board of adjustments. We'll do we'll start with board of adjustments. Is Nate's from here? Nate? No, it's not Nate. Okay, if you come to Mike Summers, sir, you come up to the podium, please. And Mike, I'm going to ask you a series of questions and just answer them to your best way you can, and then the council will make their decision in October. There's only 2 people on board of adjustments tonight, since reappointed. Well, it's probably a very good chance everybody will be reappointed, but I think it's good for council to hear the questions. On the board of adjustments, why do you live in Copper Canyon and what attracts you to Copper Canyon?
I answered that. I kind of purchased my home in Copper Canyon. I was a teacher at Marcus High School, and I used to get up there quite a bit to inspect the projects, the FFA and stuff, and I really liked it. I lived in Charleston and wanted to get property, and this place looked like it was built. I've been riding my bike with him for years. I was well acquainted.
Why do you think people live and move to Copper Canyon?
Well, I think it's a well-kept secret. I personally think that they look at, they may not use these words, they may see it as an oasis in the middle of all this growth and hustle bustle that we see here in the metroplex.
What do you see as the vision for our town, for Copper Canyon?
I see a vision, as we talked in the past, continue to offer country living while still living in close proximity to the necessary services that we need, like, for example, medical, shopping, groceries, things like that. You know, I live almost far north, and it's still only 6 or 7 minutes, and we're in a shopping center.
Why are you interested in volunteering for the Board of Adjustments?
I've been on the board as either a member or an alternate for several years, and when I first initially got on, I knew very little about the mission, but I've since learned quite a bit more. I think it's very important. I think there are always exceptions to the rule. A person can, we don't want to put a hardship on anybody, but if we can see through, careful deliberation, then I think it's the right thing to do to make those changes or allow them to do something else.
How do you see the role of a Board of Adjustment member?
Well, we need to be able to clearly interpret the provisions of zoning and make sure that it's not an emotional decision. And we need to study the situations carefully. We need to be able to make a good, solid decision when it comes to whether we say yes or no.
We have a statement, in reaching its decision, the Board of Adjustment shall not grant a variance appeal if it finds that a situation caused the hardship or difficulty in either self-imposed or generally affecting all or most properties in the same zoning district. Please give an example using your understanding of what a hardship is.
Well, I think at the last board meeting, we had such an example. We had a resident, this is the second time to approach us, and they built their home, and they faced it a certain way. But we have since we passed another ordinance that made it impossible for them to put the outbuilding they wanted to add where they were supposed to go, which would have been a glaring eyesight to the rest of the neighbors where the mountains. So that we felt was an exception, and that would cause a hardship to them if we had to allow that.
All right, sir, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you very much. I will go to planning and zoning. First person to sign in tonight is Deb Smith. Deb, Deb Smith is currently a full-time commissioner. Why do you live? I'm going to ask you some of the similar questions. Okay? Why do you live in Copper Canyon, and what attracts you to Copper Canyon?
I'm gonna answer that in reverse. What attracted me to comprehending was Mark Smith. And as a result of that, I found solutions to heaven on earth, and that's why I live here.
And why do you think people like living in Copper, move to Copper Canyon?
It's the quiet, peaceful, neighborly countryside living.
And what do you see as a vision for Copper Canyon?
To do our best to maintain that country living lifestyle.
Why are you interested in volunteering on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
As a landowner, I feel that it's my part or my job to want to do my part to maintain that lifestyle and support the city.
How do you see your role as a planning commissioner?
The role as the planning commissioner is to uphold the code and ordinances as approved by the council.
True. What do you see your biggest challenge for Copper Canyon?
I think the biggest challenge for Copper Canyon is going to be to control the growth at the same time that we find the resources to maintain our infrastructure.
Sure. If a developer comes in and presents a plan that you think is not to our liking or is not compatible for the location, but it technically meets the code, what would you do?
As a PNC member, my job is to enforce the code and the ordinances as approved by council, not to change them or judge them. I would likely voice my opinion and my concerns about what I don't like about it. But I believe that my job, I think we have to treat everybody equally, no winners and losers. And my job would be to support the code. Council can always override me.
Thank you, appreciate you. Mitch? Hi, Mitch, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Kind of shotgun here. Why do you live in Copper Canyon and what attracts you to Copper Canyon?
Sure. So my wife is a longtime Copper Canyon resident. When I married her, I made the mistake of driving to Ohio Village for a little while, and then out to Bartonville. And then property came up here in Copper Canyon, which was just our dream property. A few acres, horses, and so we moved here.
Great. Why do you think people move to Copper Canyon?
It's sort of the best of two worlds. And everybody comes out to this area to the same thing, which is it's a slice of heaven, but it's really the fact that you have so much privacy. You feel like you're in the country, but you're within 10 minutes or 15 minutes of shopping or 15 minutes of the airport. So if you're still working, it's easy to get around, but you have a relaxed lifestyle.
What do you see as your vision for the town?
I think the vision is consistent with what we've heard very loudly for the last several years, right? Which is keep Copper Canyon rural. It's find that balance between the demands we have. We have a high growth area in North Texas, it's been crazy in the last 2 years, but still maintain that integrity that we've always.
Why are you interested in volunteering for the planning commission?
So I've been fortunate. I served for a few years as an alternate, and then for the last year and a half as vice chairman. I think that it's important to be able to represent the town, to try to help the townspeople understand some of the challenges that we have, and then represent the townspeople and find that middle ground.
How do you see your role as a planning commissioner?
So my role is to be that in between voice, right? It's to understand what the planning and zoning rules are, and then how do we apply those, interpret those, and then make a recommendation back to council.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for Copper Canyon?
Deb said it really, really well, right? It is this challenge of trying to make sure that we can continue to provide infrastructure for our community. And we've got these challenges where we've got some existing zoning in place and people don't want that zoning. And we can't change the zoning, but it's trying to help people understand what we can do. And I think one of the things we can do, one of the things we are trying to do is to put developer agreements in place, right? Expectations, written expectations to try to protect for what the townspeople want and hold the developers accountable to deliver.
Okay, if the developer comes in and presents a plan that you think is not to your liking or is not compatible for the location, but it technically meets the code, what would you do?
Sure. If it meets the code, it meets the code. My opinion doesn't matter. And Steph said we often debate this and share publicly what we think about it. But most importantly is trying to find a way to meet the spirit of what everyone wants against the requirements of the code.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you for serving. Jeff Dahl. Jeff currently is alternate. Is the alternate, yeah.
Actually wrote this out because I thought I was going to be out of town, but and I can still submit these if you need to.
Okay, why do you live in Copper Canyon and what attracts you to Copper Canyon?
We moved here 2 years ago from Highland Village. Our kids are young, we wanted to get away from congestion. We picked Copper Canyon because of open spaces in a rural feel. And the proximity to restaurants and shopping and adjacent communities is just pointed out.
Why do you think people live and move to Copper Canyon?
I'm assuming for similar reasons. Plus it's, it's very unique. It's, surrounded by development, right? It's a gem in the North Texas mayhem. I think it's also an ideal carrier for those people with horses and cattle interests. You can't find basic needs.
What do you see as the vision for the town?
Keep the open spaces and rural feel. I really don't think we need retail restaurants here, because again, we need access from Main Street, village, flat down for that.
Why are you interested in volunteering as a planning commission?
As demonstrated when we first moved here, my wife and I have always actively served in the communities that we live. We both feel it's important, right, and responsibility to do that in some form or fashion. I also feel that my broad business experience can add value to P&Z as well as helping on town council. Additionally, I've got firsthand experience working with town council residents and developers in our village. And I'll note those were very contentious and stressful projects that I was involved in. But looking back at it, we were able to find some happy common ground for everybody.
How do you see your role as a planning commission?
As the others mentioned, it's really about interpreting existing ordinances and guiding town council in residents on related activities. And secondly, working with both town council and residents on cleaning up, modifying, and ordinances.
What do you see as your biggest challenge for comfort? What do you see as the biggest challenge for comfort?
I think what we're experiencing now, working with developers, town council, and residents to negotiate and develop solutions and serve all stakeholders. It's really about finding common ground. That's hard work.
The $1 million question: if the developer comes in and presents a plan that you think is not to your liking or is not compatible for the location, but technically meets the code, what would you do?
As Mitch mentioned, code is code, right? But as I previously mentioned, that we need to make an effort to try to negotiate and find a common ground with all stakeholders, right? I mean, we're all in this together: residents, town council, P&Z, developers. You just need to find common ground, and that takes a lot of talking and negotiating. P&Z can't overrule code. Code's code. That's your role, you town council. But again, we can work with you and help the community do that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Jackie, I know you turned in written, but very good. Well, I'll ask you the same questions.
You need to ask me again?
Yes. Well, would you like to do, or would you?
It's up to you, you want to have your time in, or you turn in
I
on.
think main council was just like to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's like either bucket.
Same question. Why do you live in Copper Canyon, and what attracted you to Copper Canyon, I guess?
Well, I think I hit on there, but bought the first piece of property out here in 1976, built my house in 82. Had up to 200 acres, did have to sell off a piece of it so I could keep the rest. My brother and I owned a lot of it together, and I had to get rid of a 30-acre piece, which is now the Boots Ranch development, so that allowed me to keep the rest, which I'm continuing to do as long as I can do it. The rest of my life, and it's up to my kids. When I bought out here, literally when I first came out here, before I was 7 was right. So I've seen a lot of changes. My father sat on the city council here for many years. He was the one that actually twisted Larry Johnson's arm to get on the city council many years ago. I feel very strongly about giving back and got the background to do it. So wonderful place, and if I didn't like it, I wouldn't like it.
When do you think people move here?
I think everybody said the same thing, and it's actually exactly right. It is kind of an oasis. We've got this wonderful atmosphere. We've got open spaces. We're just different. We're not like anybody else around us at all. Wonderful place. I think most of them want to come out and spread their wings a little bit and not where you can reach out and touch your neighbor outside your window, and everything out, more space. And I think a relaxed life.
How do you see, what are your interests involved? What is your interest in volunteering for planning and zoning?
Well, I've been on planning and zoning for a couple of terms. I was on board of adjustments for a couple of terms before that. I'm My background is in real estate. I'm well aware of what's coming up. I'm very attached and on the inside loop on legislatively what's going on, both at the state of Texas and nationally. So that expertise helps. It's good. I know this town backwards and forwards. And I just very strongly believe in serving when I feel like there's something I have to give back.
How do you see your role as a planning commissioner?
I think it's been said over and over, the role of planning commissioner is to analyze what comes in, make sure it meets with our codes and zoning. And then if it fits codes and zoning, we move it on up to council. I don't think as a planning and zoning commissioner, personal opinion fits in anywhere. We can express, I do find that most developers want to work with us. You know, and if we say, yeah, it fits, but boy, we'd love to see something different. Most of them really want to please. They want a project that everybody's going to like. So we don't have, I understand the role, but we do not have the job or the ability to turn anything away that does fit in our rules. And if we see that there's a problem with a rule, that something's happening that's not good, it's for planning and zoning to say to council, take a look at this. We may need to adjust this or change this in the future. This could be a problem.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for Copper Canyon right now?
The biggest challenge is obviously growth that we're going to have. I think it may be infrastructure more than anything. I think we have good rules, regs, zoning in place to manage what we want. So I don't think it's our job, especially as P&Z, to manage the growth, but I do think infrastructure, whether it's electricity and runoff and all those other things, and roads especially, are something that we really have to keep a close eye on. I also, and this is y'all's job, but it is also something we all need to keep in mind is our fiduciary duty and the physical, the money, keeping us in line that what we do and what is approved works in a positive manner for the future of the town.
Final question, if the developer comes in and presents a plan that you think is not to your liking or does not comply with the look, or compatible with the location, but it technically meets the code, what would you do?
Well, my personal opinion doesn't matter. If it's constructive criticism on something that, we think would be beneficial to the project, if it meets all our codes, if it meets all the zoning, if it meets everything in there, we can't change that. It moves on. I think our job as P&Z is to look at it and make sure that it does, and to give constructive criticism, but if it meets everything, my personal opinion is not going to be enough to change.
Thank you, Jackie, appreciate it. Catherine Bexler.
Hello.
Hi. Why do you live in Copper Canyon and what attracted you to Copper Canyon?
Well, we moved here in 1994. We came from Highland Village. We liked the rural surroundings, the elbow room, the green space, and the close proximity to airports and highways. So it was far enough.
Why do you think people live and move to Copper Canyon?
For the same reason, I think. They want to get away from the close, high density population. And they like green space. They may have farm animals. They may want a little more over.
What do you see as the vision for our town? Okay.
Well, I would like to see it still grow in the same way that it is now, green space, and I don't think that is a high density area and or commercial fit, because we only have a little tiny sliver of on 407, but the rest of Copper Canyon is further north. But I'd like to see it, growth is going to come no matter what, but I still like to see it along the same line.
Why are you interested in volunteering for Planning and Zoning Commission?
Well, I have been in development with my husband and my company for about almost 27 years in all 4 counties. So I've been involved in a lot of zoning and development, and I think my background experience may bring something to the table for planning and zoning.
How do you see your role as commissioner?
again, I would see it as trying to follow the zonings of the code, but also make sure that it doesn't affect negatively the neighboring properties.
What do you see the biggest challenge for Copper Canyon right now?
I want to say both, we're surrounded by great cities and towns that are developing at a very fast rate. And we're being right in the middle of it. And you want to be able to keep up with it. But I think that's what's going to be the problem for it.
If a developer comes in, presents a plan that you think is not to your liking, or is not compatible with the location, but technically meets the code, what would you do?
Well, if it meets the code and it meets zoning, obviously we would need to work to be able to accommodate that, provided that no harm is done to the neighboring properties, whether they're on Copper Canyon or another jurisdiction. So you want to be mindful of that, but still follow the code and zoning that is already in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any more on this list, but Nancy Henry.
Yes, she did.
Did I just go ditto?
Your call. I'll sure answer the question. Why do you live in Copper Canyon, and what attracted you to Copper Canyon?
I like the rural atmosphere. I like the days when we had to drive into Old Orchard Hill to get the Tom Thumb to get your groceries. And Birmingham was a gravel road with no name. I came out here because of Bud Henry, who bought the land in 75, built the house in 79. I showed up in 1980.
Why do you think people move here?
For the rural atmosphere and a great place to raise their children.
What do you see as the vision for the town?
An oasis just like Central Park.
Why you're interested in volunteering for the planning commission?
I think I could add some positive stuff to it and outlook. I'm finally retired, so I have the time now. Used to not get home until like 7:30 at night, so I think I make a positive contribution.
How do you see the role of the planning commission?
We review the ordinances, when they bring developers and that bring stuff to us to look at it and review it and pass it to the council.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for the town right now?
Keeping it rural.
If a developer comes in and presents a plan that you think is not to your liking or is not compatible for the location, but it technically meets the code, what do you do?
You follow the code. We don't have a choice.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't believe there's anyone else here. You do have the two written statements, council. So what I would ask you to do is to evaluate the answers you were given, pass that on to staff. Staff will put it together, and then in October they'll bring back your recommendations as quick. I believe that on the Board of Adjustments, there's two incumbents. They're both reapplying. On planning and zoning, you have 3 commissioners, full-time, and 2 alternates. Next year, you will have 2 full-time commissioners and 1 alternate. So that will be 3. You have 3 alternates and 5 full-time commissioners. So that's what you'll see next year. Any other things you'd like to discuss in work session, or would you like to?
Sure, I have a Board of Adjustment sheet that I don't have.
Sorry.
There you go. You have one of these.
Here's a check out.
There's the written statement, we have written statements from Mr. Porter.
No.
Or we don't have anything more for Deb Schmitz.
Deb, slow.
Okay, she's, okay.
We have written statements from Kathy Liberts and Mike Summers.
Okay, great.
I don't have anything from Rick Porter or anyone. Okay, with that being 6:30, I will close the work session and we will reconvene into regular session at 7 o'clock. Thank you. I'm good.